Welcome back for Chapter 2 of CHD 204, Methods and Materials for Educating Young Children. This week, we will discuss the objectives associated with the teacher's role in a self-directed learning environment. As a teacher in a self-directed learning environment, your role is different from that of a teacher in a traditional classroom. We learned in Chapter 1 how to set up such an environment so that children can make choices and to become deeply involved in their own learning. Now it is necessary for us to consider two of the most important tasks that a teacher in a self-directed learning environment must perform. Number one, they must be able to provide appropriate curriculum materials and activities based on curriculum goals and the children's developmental levels. And number two, they must be able to support the children in their use of the materials. How does the teacher do it? In the chapters that follow, we will discuss ideas and activities for each of the classroom learning centers. However, for Chapter 2, the teacher's role, we will discuss how teachers can determine the children's developmental stages so that the activities and materials provided will be appropriate for children at various levels of growth, and how teachers can support the children in their interactions within the self-directed learning environment. So join me, Mrs. Murph, as we learn all about the teacher's role in a self-directed learning environment. We recognize that children grow and develop physically in a well-defined chronological sequence as they mature from year to year. Growth within these ages and stages of development is not always even. Some children progress more rapidly than others, whereas others experience developmental lags. How can we, as an early childhood teacher, help them? Early childhood classroom personnel need to use appropriate tools to determine each child's developmental level in order to provide materials and activities that are suitable for the child. To be appropriate, the materials and activities should appeal to the child's current interest and ability level, stimulate and prolong the child's involvement, challenge the child physically and intellectually, and not be too difficult or too easy. So in other words, the materials and activities should match their developmental levels. The 3M method is one such way for teachers to determine a child's developmental level. It is based on research of Piaget and Vygotsky and focuses on children's interactions with materials and activities. In other words, it allows teachers to focus mainly on how children interact with materials during play in order to determine their developmental levels. If you observe children during their play, you will notice that at first they fool around with things, like they manipulate them to find out how to use them or what those items will do. Then they spontaneously begin to use them the proper way over and over again, almost as if they are practicing how to use the item. The 3M method, which stands for manipulation, mastery, and meaning, is a practical and invaluable way to determine a child's level of involvement with materials and activities. It is key and essential to planning and setting up the self-directed learning environment. The important aspect of these findings for the teacher is the how. How do children carry out this interaction with objects and activities and people that they come in contact with in their environment? That is the key to determining their developmental level. And then using the information that you observe and that you gain from that by planning the curriculum as suggested by NAEYC. Manipulation is the first of the interaction stages and is concerned with the children's beginning explorations with unfamiliar objects or activities. Because children don't know how things work, they will try them out in a variety of ways until they learn what to do and how to do it. Cognitive psychologists sometimes call this stage sometimes called the manipulation stage exploratory play. All young children, regardless of their age, seem to go through this manipulation stage with new and unfamiliar objects. Some examples of manipulation or exploratory play are, so in an infant, if they pick up a rattle, where does it go? Straight to their mouth. They may drop it and then like kick it with their feet, pick it up again, put it back in their mouth. They may bang it on the side of their crib, and when it makes that strange noise to them, they'll do it over and over again to continue to see if it will continue to make that strange and unfamiliar noise. Another example of manipulation stage in the dramatic play center may be using props in strange or really funny ways until they figure out the items and how they work and what they're supposed to do with them. Once children begin to have some control over the object they are working with, they will progress to the mastery stage and seldom return back to manipulation. Mastery, often called practice play by cognitive psychologists, refers to the tendency of children to repeat an action over and over and over again, as mentioned, almost as if they're practicing or putting themselves through a drill. An example of a child in a mastery stage in the block building area will build a tower, knock it down, and then build it over again. Knock it down, build it again. In dramatic play, an example for a 2-year-old will be to put the baby in the crib, cover it up with a blanket, rock it in its crib, then take everything out of the crib and do it all over again. In fact, they may do it time after time after time again. It should be noted at the mastery stage that both Piaget and Montessori believe that this repetitive type play, this doing things over and over and over again in a young child's motor behavior are crucial for their intellectual development, because remember, they're trying to master it. They're trying to gain control of it. The more advanced stage of children's interactions with materials occurs when children have finally gotten control over the object through manipulation and have satisfied their impulse to practice through mastery. Now, if their cognitive development is advanced enough, they are ready to add their own meaning to the activity. It's interesting at this stage that the children, even if they might be in different programs, different classrooms, wherever, will use the same materials in the same ways. Examples might be if they're playing doctor in the dramatic play area, almost all the time you're going to see them be giving a shot, okay? And at blocks, they're going to stack the same kinds of blocks to build the same types of buildings. So they're just going to continue to do those types of things, even though they may not be in the same program. Using the 3M method as your guide is the job of the teacher. It is the job of the teacher to circulate around the room to make general observations to be sure that the children are comfortable with their self-selected activities. Then you will begin specific observations of particular children to see how they are getting along, listening to what they're saying, and determine their level of involvement. You will need to make sure that you have good observer's eye and that you are watching to see what the children are doing with the materials and with one another. This focused observation will let you know if your curriculum is working or not. What you will look for and what will you say to the children? You will be focusing specifically on what the child is doing with the object to determine their level of involvement. Are they at the manipulation stage? Are they at the mastery stage? Or are they at the meaning stage? And then when you're talking with a child, your comments should reflect on the child's actions, possibly encouraging them to try things differently, or possibly to encourage them to engage with another type of material. So let's review and let's look at what we've learned in the teacher's role in a self-directed learning environment. We've talked about determining children's developmental levels, how you're going to do that. recording observations of children, responding to individual children, and then serving as a behavior model for children. If you turn to the end of your textbook in chapter 2, you'll see an outline of these 4 items. So thank you for joining me for chapter 2, the teacher's role in a self-directed and learning environment. And I hope you'll join me next week as we take a look at the Block Center in a self-directed learning environment. See you next time.